Okay, so first of all, I just want to thank you guys for being willing to share your thoughts today, and I'm so excited that all of the other educators in the other rooms are going to get to hear your thoughts and conversations that I've been so privileged to hear at our other sessions. So we spent a little bit of time in our first session writing our own definitions for change, and so I want to zip around the circle and have each of you give your definition for change. And why don't you go ahead and just this first time, you don't have to say your name every time you talk, but for this first one, say your name, where you're from, and your definition of change. And I'm going to start with Lily.
Okay, well, I'm Lily, since she already said it. And I think my definition of change is like it's a whole new, it's like an open door, like it's something that's going to be completely different and not necessarily good or bad.
Okay, and where are you from, Lily?
Priest River, in the school district West Mall, right?
Okay. Well,
and use your loud voices. Loud voices.
Okay. I'm Colton, and I'm from Priest River, and I think change is a person or object that gets different over time, or for bad or worse. So, pretty much it.
I'm Tyson from Lake Pend Oreille School District, and I think change is doing something differently with a specific goal in mind.
I'm Dakota Wilson from the Cottonwood School District, and I think change is moving from old to new, either positive or negative.
I'm Becca Bruner, also from Cottonwood School District, and I think change is anything that's out of the ordinary, good or bad, planned or not.
I'm Cole Barber, and I'm from Kellogg School District, and I think it's when you differ from the norm of the way you do something.
I'm Kate from Orofino, and I think change is variation from the norm that is held for an extended amount of time.
And I promise that's not a dictionary definition.
Yeah.
Kate truly wrote that sentence. Lane.
I'm Lane Morrow from Rothschild, Idaho, and my definition of change is doing something different for the better.
I'm Josh. I'm from Wallace School District, and I believe change is a movement in a positive or negative direction.
I'm Megan from the Coeur d'Alene District, and for change, I believe that it's like what someone like gives up for something else or does something different for the better, and I kind of feel like it could be a chain effect.
I'm Michael from the Lapway School District, and my definition of change would be adapting, improvising, and overcoming when needed.
Okay, so this is a question, the first question that I want to ask you guys to talk a little bit about is actually a question that Kate wrote. And she wrote, what, in your opinion, is the most effective way to communicate the need for change to your peers and then implement that change? And we started off our conversation, I think, Tyson, you had talked a little bit about switch and some of the connections you made from that question to the reading you've done. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll jump into a conversation?
Absolutely. One of the biggest things that I got from switch is how when you want to present a change, you want to present the goal first, and then allow people to decide for themselves the changes that need to be made. If you start by telling people the changes they need to make, they don't feel like they're a part of the process, and they won't feel a commitment to the goal. Whereas if you tell them the goal, they'll want to make their own changes to work toward that. And an example in the book was the medical quality in the hospitals, and so the person who worked for the medical examination company had asked these hospitals to step up their game and bring more quality in their work, but rather than saying, oh, you guys should make changes and do things better, he said, let's try to save 150 lives, which really impacted people more because they knew what the ultimate goal was.
What about the rest of you? What, in your opinion, is the most effective way to communicate the need for change and then help implement it?
I think setting an example is a big one. Or doing by example, like start it off on your own and go from there. See who follows.
Can't just tell people what to do, but have to live it yourself?
Yeah.
Good. What else?
I think a big one would be sharing your vision with other people. And just like Becca said, lead by example. That's a big part of it. And also getting a strong foundation with like different volunteers and different teachers, just making it aware.
Any other thoughts?
I think talking to people face to face has a huge difference too, rather than just Facebooking it. It makes them have to share a reaction with you, so you can get all of the different reactions and see what people are comfortable with and everything like that.
I have have a feeling some of the adults might be cheering that a young person like yourself is saying you can't just do it on Facebook. There also has to be, multiple ways that we communicate with people. It's a great point.
And I agree with Lane. Like, you have to make sure you're getting that two-way communication and not just the one way. You have to see people's reactions. Like, you can't just go with a poster or Facebook.
There was another great question written by a student in our group. Actually, Tyson, I think this might have been your question. What in your school or district might seem impossible to change? And when we talked about this a little bit earlier, I was really struck, Josh, by your comment about there always being students who might need extra help as something that will probably never change, that you might expect that forever. But yet you didn't necessarily seem to think that was a bad thing. So talk a little bit about what you meant by it. There will always be students needing extra help.
Not everybody learns at the same pace, so you're going to have to stay behind with some kids and maybe kind of push them along a little, while other kids can just take it and run. And you can't just leave the kids behind, because they'll always be behind. They'll never work to catch up. So.
And does that fact bother you?
Not really. There's nothing they can do about it, unless they're not trying. Like, there's a difference between not learning and not trying. So I think you have to try.
So you're all probably here because you're fairly successful students, would be my guess. In thinking about your own personal success versus or including the success of others or the collective whole of your school, how do you guys feel about that?
Well, I feel pretty successful based on my school because I don't have to study at all or anything. I just learn it in class, and I really don't have to think about it, and it just comes to me. But for other kids, they like try so hard and study and study and study, and they'll still get like an F on a test. So I feel bad for those kids that just like they try so hard, but it just doesn't come to them. But
Yeah, for me it was more like expectations, I think, because my parents and a lot of people had really high expectations for me, and I didn't like disappointing or being told that I couldn't do something, so then I would work up to those expectations and really try to achieve. So I don't like when like not very successful kids have really low expectations, because then they don't have anything to work up to. They don't feel like they need to work up to it.
So high expectations for all kids?
Yeah, I think so.
But I think success too comes in a variety of different forms. Like, I may have a good GPA and like I'm involved with our newspaper and student leadership, but like I couldn't play football to save my life. Like, so I think that when we look at success, we should say, well, there are those who are very successful in a classroom, but there are those who are successful elsewhere. And it doesn't just have to be sports. I mean, you could be really good at welding or carpentry or something like that. And I think that success shouldn't just be based on grades. And so when I think of how I compare to other people, as far as grades are concerned, I would say I'm very successful, but like I couldn't build something. Well, I can put together furniture, but I don't think I could like construct something out of wood.
Well, and it takes all types of success, like you said, welding and sports and the grades. It takes different types of people to be successful at different types of things to make the school as a whole successful. So, like you touched on a really good point there.
Yeah.
Are there other things that seem impossible to change in your systems, your school and your district?
oh, well, I think last names is one thing about it. Like, people, if you live in a small town, some people will come in and everybody knows them. They're always like, their family was a big part of the whole town, like in the building of the town. So all the kids have the popularity and picked first in sports and that kind of stuff. And then there's the kids who just come here out of nowhere and they don't have any like popularity or anything. They have to work their way up. So I guess that's a big thing.
Sports too. The more athletic you are, it seems, the more you get treated better. Like if you're a star football player, they'll be a little more lenient on your grades to keep you eligible.
Cut down on assignments.
You're probably right that your last name's not going to change.
Yeah,
But
well,
maybe
like,
we can
but it's
increase
not
our
gonna-
knowledge about how it impacts the system.
Yeah, well, I was just like family errors
Yeah,
is what I
you're
was
right.
saying. Like,
Yep.
if you're part of the family, it's not going to change. Like,
Yeah.
you're going to stay just like your dad was, just like your grandpa was in high school,
Yeah.
all popular or whatever.
Do you feel pretty hopeful that things can change over time? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
There's always room for change.
Because in schools, like, the people change every year. Like you get a new group of people, one group graduates, like, so there is this change that's happening just as far as like the faces that you see. So I definitely think change can happen.
Do you fear change?
No.
Why not?
Well, you can go ahead. Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, because it can be for either the better or the worse. Like, yeah, I would fear it for the worse because like losing friends and stuff like that, doing bad in school, or like becoming less smart, not focusing on your grade. That's bad change, but that's something you can like change again to become good. But then there's the good change that is actually harder to become bad, like your level in school or like how you're doing. Like, say you get a whole bunch of A's straight and you have a 4.0 and you're doing good. It's not like you're gonna just all of a sudden become terrible unless something really bad happens. But
Even if it was a bad change, your school learned from it and they won't make that mistake again. So they'll improve the school for the better.
If you fear change, you won't really make any progress. I mean, everything changes daily, so we really do need change.
And I think everyone's scared of change to a certain point, but the part that matters is being able to get over the fear and ignore the fear and be able to make the change anyways. Because, like, really, if you think about it, everybody here is scared of changing a certain thing. Like, you're not completely unafraid of change. It's the ability to get over it.
Because we all have our comfort zones. Like, change definitely, like, stretches us out. I was actually reminded of a quote from the movie You've Got Mail, and she says, everybody says that they love change, but all they're really saying is that what they didn't want to happen has happened. And I thought that was kind of funny because, you know, sometimes it's true. Like, we don't want to change, but maybe it's for the better and we need to change. So we should embrace change.
And I feel like for the most part, we wouldn't be changing things unless there wasn't a problem. And so I think while we're changing it, we're striving to do something better than what we were doing. So I think change is almost always good.
And I think a lot of people are scared of like major change, like just change like snap instantly, and it just scares people. But I mean, it does come in baby steps, and then we progress to the real change.
So why is it worth it then? What are the benefits?
learning from your mistakes, or
I think it's different for
something
every
different.
person.
Experience.
From the normal day-to-day life that changes. Like, you need that kind of, I do at least.
Get you hooked back in again.
Yeah.
Michael, what were you going to say?
I said experience.
New experiences.
Yeah.
Figure out what works better.
Colton and Dakota, I really like that you both brought up something about, you know, failure happens when you're experimenting with things, and change doesn't always come with a 100% guarantee that it's going to be better, but you both seem to say things about, well, failure doesn't have to be the end of the world. You can learn from that and then move forward. Okay. Another question written by a student. Actually, two of you wrote similar questions. Are you willing to be the change in your school, and how do you think you as student leaders can influence change that's happening in your school?
Well, you just said it right there, student leaders. Like, we're the leaders of the school, so we need to be the first ones to initiate that change.
How do you do that?
We need to know about the change. We need to be educated enough to tell other students what's going on. We need to make sure they know we're comfortable with it, so they can make them more comfortable with the new change.
You need to lead by example too. You can't just say, hey, we're going to change this, and not just sit back and watch. You need to lead by example and actually take a step and show people that it is okay to do it. Change.
Change our way of thinking for me. That would be for me. Just make it so that other students can see that there's something in me that they want, something that they would want to do in school, something that would make them want to step up to that role of leadership.
And take responsibility upon yourself or ourselves to be educated on why there's change and what the change is going to be, so that when you are questioned and the change, like people question the change, that you're able to come back and say, well, we still need it, this is why.
Even if you don't support it, you still need to be able to present it in a positive way.
So I hear many of you talking about the opportunity you have to kind of help be advocates for change in your school by knowing and then not being afraid to share out with others, and then a lot about leading, for example, which has come up a lot in your conversations. Are you willing to be a part of that? Everybody look at a camera for 2 seconds and shake your head and show all the other people, yes, we're willing to be a part of that change. Okay, so why do you think then when there are lots of benefits that people resist change?
They're afraid of it still.
Comfort zones, like we were saying earlier.
Yeah, people put up barriers, and they don't want to cross those barriers, but you have to take down the walls and like try something new.
I think they're afraid of the negative outcomes that are possible.
Or they might not understand the reason for the change. They might just hear of the change and be opposed to it, but like not fully understand what purpose the change is serving.
Or they could be like a follower. If no one else is doing it, they're not going to be doing it either.
They're comfortable with everyday life.
I feel like a lot of times they don't want to fail and change something that already has been built up. So if they're already almost to perfection and then they get another change, I think a lot of people are afraid of taking that chance and seeing if it'll be for the better or the worse.
So now you all look at me. It's giving you wait time. So people resist to change. And I've heard you say a lot of strategies about how we can help overcome that, back to, again, being the examples and having accurate information, sharing that step out. Any other thoughts on how you help overcome resistance to change?
Be like the first one to go out and try it. Because like if you try something new and people see like, oh, like that was cool, or oh, that worked. Yeah. Like they're gonna want to try it too. Like be the first one to do it. Like that video we watched.
Oh
the
yeah.
kid was dancing.
What video? Why does it make you think of that?
It was the one. I think it was the first session we had, and the kid was like dancing on the beach, and all of a sudden everyone was dancing with him. Like, and it reminds me of the quote. It's like, be the change you wish to see in the world. It's Gandhi. Learned that earlier.
Okay, so if you were to wake up tomorrow and you had a magic wand, or boys imagine it to be a wizard wand or something, not like a girly wand necessarily, but whatever kind of wand you want. If you had a wand and you could wave it, and a problem that you had identified in your district could just be gone, and a massive change had happened, what would it be, and how would you know that change had occurred?
Holy cow.
I know that's a big question.
Yeah. To have people think for themselves. Because a lot of people, especially, this goes to the elections, and that's coming up this year. Because a lot of people just think, well, this is how my family's always gone. This is what my parents tell me to think. This is what I'm going to think. I don't know why. I have nothing to back it up. But because this is the way it's always been, this is what I'm going to believe. And they don't think for themselves. They don't find things to back up their beliefs.
Okay.
I would want to make it so people that usually don't do stuff will start to try things, because I hate how always it's my same group is the only people that are trying to get someone fired up at a volleyball game, cheering. Everyone else, ooh, sitting in the back, just kind of not talking, just texting in the back. And it's I want to see these people participating in all this school stuff, and like spirit and lip sync stuff we're doing for homecoming.
Student
and
involvement.
we have 7 people in my class are doing lip sync. You can't have 7 people doing lip sync. You need more people, and I hate to see all these people that are not involved with the class in the school.
I think I would agree with that. Student and body involvement in the school is really, really important, and I think I would change that in our school.
So you'd wave your wand and everybody would be magically involved.
Yes.
Yeah.
In high
Would
That would be
school.
awesome.
So a lot of teachers want to wave that wand too and have all their students magically engaged every moment of every learning exercise. So I think that would be a great wand to wave, a good thing. What
For
else?
me, the change that I would love to see in my school is for people to feel good about themselves and not have to feel like they have to fit in with other groups. For just the normal person to realize that they are unique and special in their own way, and they don't have to fit in with the jocks or the preps or a certain group. They can identify with themselves, and everyone can just be just comfortable in their own self, in their own skin, and they don't have to be someone else.
I want to kind of build off Megan's. If I would wave the magic wand and get rid of tests and grades and not for my own benefit, because what it would do is it would prove to people that even if they weren't getting an A on something, if they understood it and they could apply it in the real world, isn't that what really matters? And I think that there are so many kids in the school system who feel like because they got an F or because they didn't get a certain mark on a standardized test, that they are unsuccessful, and that's not true. And I think what it means is if you're working at something, you should be able to know for yourself if you're doing it well or not. You don't need a grade to tell you that. And if you're not doing something well, then you should do something different. And so I think if I could wave a magic wand, I would make everything that forces kids to try to succeed or forces people to be pushed to do something, I would make that disappear and say it's okay to fail, because really there's no such thing as failure. There's just doing something differently than the standard. And so if one kid is very good at reading and loves to read about history, he can become a history professor. But if another kid likes to weld and he likes to put things together, then he can become a mechanic. And I don't think those two kids are any less successful than the other. They've just been told that because of grades and tests and everything like that. So that's what I would get rid of with my magic wand.
So then what would your measure be of students being successful?
Well, and that's a good question, because like I debated between having the magic wand get rid of like measurement of success or having like it get rid of that, because it's so hard to measure success. And while grades do it, like I don't think they do it well. So I think a better measurement of success would be to like do a longitudinal study and see, well, where did these kids end up in 10 years? Like if you have kids who, like if you somehow kept track of them and said, okay, so this kid, he's into drafting and he's into CAD, and then he goes off and he becomes an architect and designs a building, and then this other kid is extremely good at football and he plays college football and then he becomes a football coach. If you could track the success, you could then go back and see if the school is what got them on that right track to success. But it would be really difficult.
I think if anybody can figure it out, you can.
Thank you.
Not only that, but you can't have success without failure. Like if you're not willing to reach out and try something new and you fail at it, you're not going to know what's going to work. Like you're not going to know the other options.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely need to focus on the positive, because once you get in the negative state of mind, you just keep on building on negative things and just really reach out to the positive.
The downward spiral.
The downward spiral.
Yeah. Yeah, like what she said, if I could wave my wand, I would get rid of all the negative attitudes that people have toward learning. Like a lot of the kids are just like, well, I'm not going to learn this and stuff like that, and then they won't even try, and they just fail all their classes. And you know, if they met the teachers halfway and they did want to learn and they realized that, I mean, you know, knowledge is a good thing. It's how you become successful, then, you know, they'll be more successful. And
Yeah. I love what you're saying, Becca, because it's not just putting all the responsibility on the teacher for that engagement in learning, but bringing in the student's responsibility for their own learning as well.
Yeah.
And going back to what Tyson said, with the grading system, they don't look at how really successful you were. So what if you got a below basic score or anything like that? What they don't look at is improvement. So really they just think, oh, you haven't learned anything when you get below what you should, when they don't look at improvement, where if you improve by 20 or 30 or however high you improved, obviously you learned something if you improved. Or even like if you just stay the same, you're going to push yourself to learn for the next time. So I think that's success in itself there.
I think part of it's the teachers too. Like, if the teacher isn't excited about what they're teaching you, like you're not going to be excited to learn it.
Yeah, exactly.
And they have to. It's like I don't know. If I walk into a classroom and the teacher's like, "Okay, open up your books to page 20, read the whole chapter, do the assignment," it's like, no. Like, yeah, I'll do it, but okay, what am I learning from this? I'm going to read and write, and like it's exactly what's in the book. But then if you're not engaged in it, or they're not like giving you, like, I know I'm really hands-on and like hear it all the time, like keep repeating it, and if that's not happening in the classroom, it's really hard for me to learn it. And so it helps if like the teacher understands each child's needs. Like they're gonna need to do that with like kids, and understand like what like motivates those kids to learn.
That helps to know like why we're learning it, what it has to, how it'll help us in a real world situation. Otherwise, it's just like they're shoving all this information into our brains, and it's just like, why am I even paying attention to this?
And going off of what you said about the, you know, open your books to page 20, all you're doing is reading and then writing the answers. It's just as easy to look over the person next to you like, hey, what are your answers? Like without the hands-on interactive stuff, how can you tell? Somebody's just like, oh, look, that's a great answer over there. Might as well use that one.
Or we're gonna get this off the same page anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I think teachers need to take under consideration how hard it is for them to adjust to change and what they're expecting of us as students. Like, it is hard for us as well.
Yeah, maybe there's a thought that just because you're young, every change is easy for you. Not always. All right, I know you're all going to cry, but our conversation is coming to a close. So what I'd like to hear in conclusion is just if, after our discussion here, if there was one thing that you could say to all these, really awesome Idaho educators that are listening to your conversation, if you could tell them one thing about change in schools, what would it be? Do you have any concluding thoughts?
Mine's not really about change, but talk to the students, not just us. Talk to the kids who don't do so well in classes. Ask them what they could do to improve it. Talk to the kids who succeed. Just talk to the kids and see how they like the changes. See what the teachers could do to make it easier to transition into them. Just get the student body involved, the whole student body, not just us.
Not only that, but like teachers and administrators are like people too. Like everyone has that same fear of going out and doing something first. Like be that change. Go and like talk to the kids. Yeah, like do it first. Like be the one to go and change it.
And just communicate the reason why.
Yeah.
Communication, I think, is the key.
And failure just like isn't failure, it's actually more of a success, because you can look back and see what you did wrong and turn it into a bigger success.
I'd like to thank Idaho Leads
Yeah.
for the opportunity just to be able to be here and see what the administration goes through and see the processes and different things like that. And really just, I know personally if another student had a chance to be here, they'd want to be more involved.
Definitely.
I promise I didn't ask her to say that. But thank you. All right, well, this is the student group tuning out. Thanks for listening to our conversation.
10-4.
Bye. Okay, wait.